What if the kindness you show a stranger comes back to you years later in the most unexpected way imaginable? This is the unforgettable story of a scientist, a baby gorilla, and a single, life-saving act that transcended all boundaries. The air in the Congo rainforest hung thick and humid, a living tapestry of sound and scent. For Jack, a wildlife researcher who had spent years observing the gorilla troops here, it was a symphony he knew by heart. He sat silently, a ghost among the ferns, his camera lens focused on a troop of western lowland gorillas. His gaze, however, was drawn not to the massive silverback male, but to a young gorilla named Tochi. Tochi was all boundless energy and untamed curiosity, a stark contrast to the troop's cautious nature. Today, his attention was completely captivated by a cluster of vibrant, ripe fruits growing on a vine near the bank of a swift-moving stream. It was a place the gorillas instinctively avoided, a boundary understood by the entire troop. Tochi's mother, a seasoned female with eyes that held centuries of jungle wisdom, grunted a warning. She knew the dangers lurking just beyond the safety of the troop. She called to her son, a low, reassuring rumble that urged him to stay close. But Tochi's childlike desire was stronger than his fear. He saw only the glistening fruit, a forbidden prize. He snuck away from the watchful eyes of his mother, his tiny footsteps almost silent on the mossy ground. The air seemed to hold its breath as he crept toward the water's edge. He reached for the fruit, his fingers brushing against the smooth skin, when a sudden, sharp crack echoed through the forest, a branch snapping somewhere nearby. Startled, Tochi flinched, lost his footing on the slick river stones, and tumbled into the rushing water. The world went from vibrant green to a chaotic blur of bubbles and darkness. He was a small, helpless form swept away by the current, his innocent curiosity plunging him into a nightmare. Panic, cold and sharp, seized Tochi as he thrashed in the water. He was a creature of the forest floor, not the wild currents. From the depths below, a darker shape stirred. A massive anaconda, a silent predator of the river, had been waiting. Its immense body, camouflaged by the murky water, unwound from its resting place. In a terrifying instant, the cold coils of the serpent tightened around the struggling young gorilla, an ancient instinct taking hold. Tochi's playful grunts turned into guttural cries of terror that pierced the peaceful hum of the jungle. The sound reached Jack, who was much closer than the rest of the troop. The cries weren't a call of distress, but a scream of pure, primal fear. Without a moment's hesitation, Jack dropped his gear and sprinted toward the stream. He didn't think about his own safety. He saw only the helpless creature caught in the grip of a powerful predator. Reaching the bank, he grabbed a thick, fallen branch. It wasn't a weapon to kill, but a tool to create a diversion. He plunged it into the water with all his might, again and again, creating a thunderous splash that sent vibrations through the snake's body. The anaconda, startled and confused by the sudden, violent assault, hesitated and loosened its grip just enough. In that split second, Jack saw his chance. He lunged into the water, grabbing Tochi's limp body and pulling him free from the snake's embrace. With a final desperate heave, he dragged the little gorilla onto the bank, away from the water and its hidden dangers. He laid the small body on the ground. Tochi was still, motionless, with angry, bruised skin. The adrenaline coursing through Jack's veins was quickly replaced by a desperate fear that he had been too late. But he refused to give up. He had saved the body. Now he had to try to save the life. The frantic energy of the rescue gave way to a quiet, desperate vigil. Back at his remote research camp, Jack laid the unconscious Tochi on a bed of warm blankets. The little gorilla's chest was still, his breathing shallow. Jack, drawing on a lifetime of observing animal behavior and his own basic medical knowledge, began performing a form of CPR, gently pushing on Tochi's small chest. Minutes stretched into an eternity, and then a small cough, a flicker of movement. Tochi's eyes fluttered open, wide and filled with confusion and fear. Over the next few
There you go,
days,
little guy.
the camp
Easy
became a
does it.
sanctuary.
That's a good boy.
Jack, the
We'll get you
solitary
fixed up.
scientist, became a full-time caregiver. He wrapped Tochi's bruises, fed him softened fruit, and most importantly, offered him a comfort and security he now craved more than anything. Tochi, initially wary, soon began to trust him implicitly. He would cling to Jack's shirt, following him like a shadow. His small hands would grasp Jack's fingers with surprising strength. The silent bond that formed was beyond words. Jack would spend hours simply sitting with Tochi, feeling the warmth of the little body against his. It was in these quiet moments that Jack realized this was more than a rescue. It was the forging of an unshakable connection. He was no longer just an observer. He was a protector, a friend. The little gorilla, who had risked everything for a piece of fruit, had found a new kind of family, a temporary one, forged in a moment of near tragedy. But as Tochi grew stronger, the call of his true home began to grow louder. Jack knew this couldn't last. A gorilla belonged with his troop, not in a human camp. He felt the bittersweet pang of a coming farewell, a pain he was learning to accept even before it arrived. The time had come. Tochi, now fully healed, was brimming with his old, playful energy, a clear sign he was ready to return. Jack carefully placed him in a carrier and began the long trek back to the area where he had last seen the troop. He knew they might have moved, but he trusted his knowledge of their patterns. When he finally found them, the moment was pure magic. As Jack approached the edge of their territory, Tochi's mother, the same female who had tried to warn him away, caught his scent. Her head snapped up, her eyes scanning the forest. Her posture was tense, but then her gaze fell upon the small gorilla peering out from the carrier. A soft, rumbling sound escaped her throat. Not a growl, but a cry of pure, profound relief. Tochi, hearing his mother's voice, erupted with excitement, sprinting straight into the embrace of his mother. The entire troop gathered around, a chorus of soft vocalizations welcoming back their lost member. It was a beautiful, chaotic scene of reunion. Jack watched from a respectful distance, his heart full. He knew this was where Tochi belonged. As he turned to leave, a small figure stood at the edge of the clearing. Tochi, in a moment of clarity that seemed far beyond his years, turned back. His eyes, dark and intelligent, met Jack's. It was a silent conversation, a look of immense gratitude, a final farewell between two beings whose lives had intersected so dramatically. Jack simply nodded, a promise that he would never forget. Years passed. Jack, now in his early 50s, had traded the deep, isolated jungle for a quiet life in a small cabin on the edge of the forest. He still worked with wildlife, but his days were now filled with writing and research, the roar of the jungle replaced by the gentle rustle of leaves. The memory of Tochi remained a cherished, almost mythical part of his life story. It was a reminder of the raw, simple power of compassion. One cool, clear evening, as Jack was about to settle in for the night, a firm, deliberate knock echoed on his front door. It was an unusual sound in this remote place. A sense of unease filled him. He cautiously opened the door, his hand on the frame. Standing there, bathed in the moonlight, were two figures. One was a female gorilla, her face lined with age and wisdom. Beside her stood a massive, muscular silverback male, his presence powerful and majestic. His eyes, however, held a familiar spark, a flicker of recognition. It was Tochi, no longer the frightened child, but a mature, powerful leader. He stood tall, his gaze steady and calm. Tochi's mother, the same female from all those years ago, stepped forward. She extended her hand, not in aggression, but in a gesture that was profoundly human. She placed her large, weathered hand on Jack's shoulder, a gentle weight that spoke volumes. It was not a greeting, but a gesture of thanks, a silent, powerful acknowledgement of a debt that could never be repaid. The moment was suspended in time, a perfect circle of kindness and gratitude that had traveled through the years. The reunion was a testament to the extraordinary bonds that can form when compassion transcends species and a simple act of bravery becomes a legend whispered by the wind through the trees. This story of Jack and Tochi is a powerful reminder that compassion knows no bounds. We want to know, what's the most profound act of kindness you've ever witnessed between people or even between different species? Share your story in the comments below. If this incredible bond touched your heart, imagine all the other untold stories waiting to be discovered. Don't miss out on our next adventure. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you can join us on our journey to explore the extraordinary connections that make our world a better place.